More to Marketing. Welcome to More to Marketing, the podcast that explores marketing, product, and everything in between. I'm your host today, Susan, and today we're going to be talking about something very close to my heart, go-to-marketing. I am so excited to introduce an expert in this field, Michelle. Michelle is a product and growth expert with the heart of an entrepreneur. I am very envious of the things that she's been doing in startup and can't wait to talk more go-to-market. Hello, Michelle. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for
I'm
having me on
good.
today.
I'm so excited to have you here, but please tell me a bit more about yourself and your experience as well.
Yep. So I run and I've founded my own consultancy called Pzella Media, and we focus on growth and product, and we primarily work with startups across APAC generally, but a little bit in Europe here and there as well. I've worked with a lot of brands and taken them to market, hence why we're talking about go to market.
Nice.
And I've helped them scale in both a product and a growth capacity.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I can't wait to get into more detail some of the things we were talking about offline, because I think there's some exciting frontiers there.
Yep.
But I suppose let's get started on topic at hand.
Yep.
How have you actually seen the role of go-to-market change over time?
I think talking from a startup's perspective, I've seen a lot more startups actually start to think about it a little bit more rather than just, here we've built our product and our MVP, everyone will come. Instead, it's now, okay, we don't necessarily believe build it and they will come. We realize we need to tell people so they will come. There's a slight distinction there. So I think that's really good, because then you start seeing, people like me being brought in, or people hired, and actual resources dedicated to actually a successful launch of a product. And it's also considered as part of the delivery process, rather than just kind of tacking it on at the end, or just handing it over to market and to marketing and going, oh, hey, we've built the product, your turn to go launch this thing, you know?
I think it's one of the key things, isn't it? It's that collaboration within the organization, that just because you've got a product coming down doesn't mean that everyone knows the ins and outs, the selling points, the features, what the consumer is actually wanting it for, what is the need it's addressing in the market, and why it's going out there. So bringing in all those specialists to work together with the go-to-market strategy, I personally think is key, and I think it's missed out quite a bit in some organizations.
Yeah, I think so too. And as a product manager as well, I actually try and involve marketing into the process, because I want to take them on the journey with me. Because then they know kind of the struggles we've had to get the product a certain way, or why we've made decisions about why we're not doing things in the launch, or, if certain features are going to come as part of V2 and things like that, and why. And so that way they know the persona, they know why we're building it and how we're building it, that by the time I get to hand it over to them to launch, they have a complete background of everything going on, and it's not just this, hey, it's done, go work it out now. And it also gives them lead time as well. I think it's being kind to marketing when you're working in product and going, hey, so we're estimating maybe, if we're lucky, a month, 2 months out, maybe you guys want to start thinking about the strategy. I'll start involving you in the meetings, and that way we can even work it out together. Because I agree, collaboration is everything. Siloing kills product.
It really can. If you don't have a successful marketing strategy for how you're going to go to market, you're never going to actually resonate with who you need to, because they may not even have time to find whatever they need. Even something as simple as a budget, you need time to actually go, okay, this is my planning structure, I've got X amount of money, where am I going to put it towards? If they have no idea about this product coming down there, those poor marketing people, they're not going to be able to do much.
And sometimes it's even just alignment on things like personas. I remember consulting to one company, product had completely different personas to marketing. And then I kind of, coming from both worlds, look at each side of the fence going, okay, guys, you need to talk and work out, like, you guys need to align, because otherwise it's going to be a fail if we're building for one persona and then you're going to market to a completely different persona. It's just like failure waiting to happen, and you don't want to do that.
Oh, exactly. I think one of the biggest successes I ever saw in a go-to-market meeting structure was bringing in all SMEs for a weekly or every fortnight catch up on where things were at, just so that they had a roadmap they could go back to their teams. So I would have product, marketing, the people looking after the website, whatever team you want to call those guys, call center, so that they knew what they needed to build out if there was any training modules that needed to be done. I'd also bring in, because I had a retail presence as well as the online. So I brought in the retail team so that they had a representative. So if they needed to design out any POS or signage or even training for them as well, they could. And then the other piece, I also always ensured I kept informed, because I'm like you, once upon a time I used to do GTM, would be legal and regulatory. And that's for a bigger company, but it's always important to keep those two in the back of your mind with a GTM, is you don't know what you don't know in some cases, and particularly if you're crossing borders, to ensure that you're not going to get yourself into trouble.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I've worked with a couple of scale-ups where they do have those resources, and it's great to just bring them in and then just go, okay, what do you think of this idea? And they either go, yeah, this is fine, I don't know why you had to bother me, or, oh my God, what are you doing? You know?
Exactly. So from your point of view then, when setting up for success, how important is go-to-market and the whole involvement?
I think if you're launching a product, it's paramount. I think it's definitely going to help the success. And whether you're coming from the product side or the marketing side, from the product side, if you've spent all of this care, effort, research, time building this product, to fall down on the last leg doesn't make sense to me. And on the marketing side, I want to know everything about the product so I can do it justice, so that when I devise a strategy, I've got the timings right, I've got my strategy sorted, and I'm ready to go to support the thing. So I think it's incredibly important piece of the puzzle. And I think, going back to what we were talking about, collaboration is that really important bit for me. Because coming from startup land, I'm used to being given budgets where I've had to do things on a shoestring. Sometimes I've been kind and they've given me ample budget, but more often than not, your early stages, if it's MVP, I can still devise a pretty smart strategy, but I just need to be aligned with product to know why, how, when. And that just really involves just collaboration and communication. Like, even with the small resources, like a small amount of resources, I can still get some good jabs in, but I need to be able to be aligned with everyone else building that product. So they would probably be the top two things for me, to kind of make sure that the go-to-market of a product is successful.
Yep, 100% agree with you there. I think that collaboration piece is what's missing a lot of the time in those organizations, because they simply just don't think, and they might be in those silos. You just get so bogged down in your own world and you forget, hey, I should actually tell that person over there they've got a job coming up.
Yeah.
So I know you've just mentioned that you've done startups, enterprise, a few other things. Do you want to give us some examples of GTM that you're able to share with us?
Okay, I can't name names, but that's okay. I built one brand in the fintech space. They were the challenger brand, and
love a good challenger.
Yeah, we had a decent budget, and one example I did was, we had a decent budget, but compared to the incumbent, naturally, a company with a couple of hundred people making revenue, you're not going to have as much budget as those guys with a fully fledged out team. And so with those guys, the way I went about it was, I had previously worked in crypto. I actually took a couple of strategies from that space, and I was really on point with my strategy, because I thought, okay, being a bigger company, they're going to be slower to move. And that's the beautiful thing about startups. You're a lot more nimble and you're a lot faster. So you can definitely get some jabs in. So an example of what I did was, I spent a lot of time on the strategy. I looked at and kind of just did your basic SWOT. Good old SWOT.
SWOT, you can't go wrong, time and place.
Exactly. And so I kind of just looked at stuff like that, worked out where the low-hanging fruit was, really spent a lot of time on the brand to make sure it's authentic, and kept reinforcing the authenticity every single time. And so when we finally launched, being a background in growth, I took a growth mentality to see what worked and what didn't work. But I basically just overlaid this strategy where I was like, okay, I know what channels the big guys are not playing on. I'm going to put resources towards there, see if we get bites. If we do, great, I'm going to double down on them. while I was building out kind of the foundations as well. And then I was just really iterating really, really fast. So if things didn't work and I'd spend a lot of time in the channel kind of testing things out, if it didn't work, I'd just kill it and be like, okay, great. I need to move the resources elsewhere and kind of go forward. And like we were talking offline, one of the things I did with this brand was actually move on to TikTok first. And so fintech marketing on TikTok was a thing. It's now not a thing anymore, since regulations have kind of come in to stamp it out. But back then there was no regs around it. And so being that we were going after millennials, and again, perfect storm, COVID had happened. So all the millennials were now on TikTok.
The audience was captured.
And I had a cheap CPM as well. So, okay, what does a little startup do that can act quick, run tests really, really fast, and has a decent, but, not gigantic budget? Great, I'm going to test out TikTok. And so I worked with influencers, and I really focused on, I wanted every single influencer to play with the app first. If they didn't do it, I wouldn't work with them because I wanted authenticity. There's so many influencers who will happily take the money, but then not touch the product. And then they basically just act. And in my opinion, audience sees through that so incredibly fast. So I worked with all of these influencers and I said, try the app. Tell me what you think about it. And they go, oh, this is great. This is great. This is great. I went, okay, great. Just talk to camera. I'm not even going to direct you too much. My direction is basically, I just want a true, honest review of that product. And it worked really, really well. We were smashing it. When I had my account managers, I actually ran that content strategy across a couple of channels, like so Facebook and TikTok. We rolled it out afterwards, and it worked on other channels as well. We were beating the finance vertical according to the account managers. We were, I think, maybe in the top 20%. I got app downloads like $1, which was insane. Even the account managers were going, we don't know how you're doing it, but this is amazing. And so it was just that believing in the brand, building out a consistent brand, being really authentic with the content that we were pushing out. And when I say authentic, it's not about necessarily production value. It's about the person who's speaking as being honest and truthful. And it's like a friend referring a friend. And so you're honest. Exactly. And that works so much better than someone going on about, oh, this product is great. And you can tell that they're not that great an actor or actress.
I got my check. I'm just saying these words.
Exactly. So we did that and we kept refining it and we almost turned it into a playbook, and we did quite well, so much so that our competitor, we could tell they started copying some of our videos, which we found like internally a little bit funny, but
it's really the flattery of that compliment, isn't it there?
Very much so. And I worked on another project as well, which was completely different in the car loan category. Just to go back on like examples of how to run a go-to-market. With that go-to-market, apparently I was the first product manager with those guys who had ever started bringing in marketing early on. And they were like, this is amazing. No one ever tells us about stuff coming down the line.
The silos.
And they loved it because by the time we were ready to launch the product from a development perspective, marketing were already on it. They were like, yep, we know exactly. And I was pulling them into meetings probably about 6 weeks beforehand. And so they all had their lead time. We were all coordinated that we were just ready to push the button by the time it was QA'd and ready to launch. Like that was,
I love it. It's just such something that sounds so simple that so many places aren't doing.
Yes, I agree.
And to go back on your example of regulations and authenticity, I still remember when I worked in a skincare company. It was American based, so we got all the American assets to utilize. And I was partly product, partly marketing in that company, and I'd sit in those sessions and we'd have our legal counsel there going through all the claims that America was doing. Say there's 100 of them. And only 2% we could do in Australia because of the regulations for the beauty industry. So as one thing I don't think people understand enough about is, depending on the country you're in, is what the marketing message may include or not include. So Australia is very strict, particularly in the beauty pharmaceutical industry.
Fintech as well.
I 100% believe that, because there is so many regulations on this so that you're not conning your customers or misleading information. And that's one piece where go to market, again, we come back to this word collaboration, don't we? If we're at least talking and making sure we're working with legal or regulatory or whatever it is, or getting advice, we then at least know that what we're building from the product side is going to be able to go to market.
No, I agree. And even sometimes I've worked with one fund management company, everything used to get passed by legal. And I was okay with that because I'm like, you guys are protecting us. I don't want to necessarily write something that ASIC comes knocking on the company's door. No. Like, I'm more than happy to work with legal. And, sometimes it'll be things like, oh, they want us to strip this whole thing out. And you're like, wait, why do you want to strip that out? And they're like, oh, because you can't say this and this. And it's like, okay, so if I just take the word and out, is that okay? And they're like, yeah, that'll work. Okay.
Exactly. It's working with them. I always made sure that legal, regulatory and risk, I work closely with, and I was 100% transparent with as well, because I wanted to have that relationship. If something happens, like, because shit does hit the fan, particularly for go to market, and you're like, oh shit, something's gone now or something's happening, whatever it might be, then you can call on them and they trust you.
Yes. Very much so. And like, they usually want to bat, like they'll bat for you too. Like it's not like they're the guys you need to hide from. They usually just want to help, right? And again, it goes back to collaboration. You just collaborate with them to work out the best way,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So have you come across any myths out there that go up against all these marketing specialists that we need to try and bust? For me, one of my ones that I keep thinking of is that they think there is no go-to-market, that it just happens.
Build it and they will come, right?
Exactly. I think that's a big myth out there to put out, because you have to work.
Yes.
Nothing comes to you unless you've already got something established.
And there's so many products and markets and personas out there, and so many channels. Like, it's impossible for everyone to know of everything. I mean, when I give talks on say marketing stack building, for example, I always show this image of what used to be called the Martech 5000, all the different software that you can utilize when building a stack, right? And people have a shock that there is just so much out there, right? And it's just kind of like, well, yeah, it's impossible for you to know every single product on the market. It's the marketers' jobs of those companies to make sure they get their product in front of you, right? So you just gotta I learned the hard way. Build it and they will come is not a thing.
No, and again, it comes a bit to quality as well, because I think another myth is that if I just make it, doesn't matter how I make it, but it does. The end users, they need to be able to believe in it, or else you're going to do worse by going out to market with those products. You're actually going to be making a negative impact coming through.
And you don't want to do anything that affects brand necessarily as well.
No, not with socials.
Exactly. You will get flamed so hard, particularly depending on the demo.
Oh, definitely. What other key mistakes do you think that marketers and product managers do when it comes to GTM?
I think that big mistake of not involving people. I've seen it too many times. And then everyone's just running around going, wait, we're launching a product. Wait, we don't have time to do lead. We've got no lead time. What do you mean it needs to be done yesterday? That's the biggest mistake I keep seeing over and over. But I think even just not giving resources to GTM. I mean, Startup Land, I've seen it start to change. But just that, oh yeah, no, it'll be great. You just go run a couple of organic social posts. That can be our launch. No, that's not going to do anything. It's pay to play these days. You know what I mean?
But even that, just simple example you gave, you've got to do copywriting skills, potentially design for whatever the imagery is going to be. There's design skills then. Plus, you need to have the know-how, if you don't have an agency doing it for you, how to actually put it up there at the right time that would make sense. And whatever the hashtag is of the day. There's actually just that one small piece of there's a social. And that doesn't even include building the story out, recording it, editing it, whatever else might be happening there too. There's actually a lot more to it than just, I'll just chuck a social on, would you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And sometimes
Yeah.
I think sometimes stakeholders forget that, like they'll underestimate how much goes into a successful campaign and launch. And they'll be just like, oh, you're just going to run some ads, do a couple of socials. That's what you can do that in a week, right? It's like, no, not if I'm going to build a proper campaign. And then if I have to reach out to influencers and PR and all these other external agencies, if I've got budget and all of that, and then keep everyone internally aligned as well, and then have a campaign that's also data driven and metric driven and everything set up. Oh no, I don't think I can do it in a week.
And I think you've touched on a really good point. I think another mistake is not measuring, not actually measuring the success of the go-to-market based on maybe channel and other metrics as well. I think that's a key mistake as well, to be able to do the successes and possibly even celebrate.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And I think if you don't measure as well, I mean, look, awareness is always going to be relatively difficult, but conversions and not tracking for things like that, how do you know what channels to then double down on?
Exactly.
Taking that growth approach, you want to double down on what works well. If it doesn't work well, that's great. At least you've got something conclusive to say why it didn't work. And then you can just redistribute spend and be efficient,
Exactly. And I love the situation where I've got a pre-benchmark as well if the product hasn't launched, so that I can see how it's performing. And then when, say, MVP2 comes in, or whatever it might be, whatever feature or anything, then I can actually see how it's newly performed as at a product level as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Because I think a lot of marketers don't think like that. There's been quite a few companies I've worked with over time that there is no benchmark, or there's no keeping of benchmarks.
Yeah.
So you don't actually know what is performing generally anyway, to be able to know if this new campaign coming through is going to work.
That's true. One company where I've consulted with, it was a really good idea, actually. So they had internal product marketers. I was working as a product manager, and we actually met together to align on the metrics that we wanted to determine for success together.
Oh, yeah,
and I like that. Yeah, right. Because then they know what they're driving for from a marketing perspective. Yeah. And I also have got metrics that I know I need to drive for that relate to the OKRs anyway. And so we're all aligned. That's the best thing,
Oh, you need to do that. Another huge one for me that I think is a mistake done is thinking of the agile methodologies that are coming through. But this was something that pre-existed. That was just the simple retro.
Yes.
Sit down with your GTM team, or like the GTM, and then all the team that have worked on it, get all those SMEs back in. Yes. I call it the good, the bad, the ugly. Let's just tell it how it is. Safe space, so we learn, so we don't do that again.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's the thing that growth methodology always says, like, failure is never a bad thing. Like, it's just a thing.
Yeah.
It's about the learnings you take from it. Don't put like a shame-based prism on top of failure. No. It's not a failure. You learnt something, and you probably learnt something quicker and cheaper than not, right?
Exactly. And together as a team, so then all of you learn.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can move forward with it, and then take the learnings and iterate on them and turn that into like working codes for the team or something like that.
Exactly. No, I 100% agree with that one. So I know GTM excites you, but what excites you so much about GTM?
I think I love working on, like, I love building brands, and I think I like being able to kind of take something from the get-go and build. I love doing the 0 to 1. It's my favorite part. And I think it's because it's almost like being very entrepreneurial focused. I kind of love that building stage. I'm a builder at heart. So anytime I've worked on GTM, it's really fun for me, because it's like getting to build this like little baby, and then kind of releasing it into the wild, and then seeing how it grows, and then working out how to build it and grow it, and like a full-on problem solver with it. I just love it, because I feel like it's the hardest the hardest bit to do in a way, because once you get it from 1 to 2, there's obviously still a lot of skill required, and but you're kind of changing tactics, because then you've got an idea of what actually works. But when you don't know what works, it's like it's even more of a challenge to try and figure that bit out. So that's what I kind of love about it.
You must love puzzles.
Yes. Yeah, I'm that type.
I love it. I love GTM too. So
like I'd be doing, like, for a hobby, I do family tree on my own, like as my little hobby at the moment. And I'm like, it's such a puzzle. And I realize I'm like, now I know why I'm finding it so fun, because I have to piece all these things together to then work out if this is accurate or not. And I'm like totally nerding out on it, but it's just so much fun.
Which you may have answered the next question. My final question I ask everyone this.
Yes.
What brand, it can be any in the whole wide world, best represents you and why?
I'm going to say Eubank at the moment.
Okay.
Actually, maybe two. Eubank.
You can have two.
What's it called? Oh, the fact I've forgotten the name. You know what? I'll stick with the one. Eubank. Because they are just killing it at the moment. They've got a really good brand idea of like no frontiers. What they're running on TikTok at the moment with our manager will get a capybara tattoo. Like it's touching on the capybara memes on TikTok. Plus also getting all of this audience to engage behind it to get them where they want to get to. And it's like this whole kind of thing. And I just love it because it's original. It's even though it's a bigger brand, it kind of is that scrappiness that I really love to see,
fun.
And it's authentic and it's relatable. So I really love those brand values, and it's like just my favorite.
No, I have to agree. That one is actually good fun. I can see how that fits you as well. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we leave on go to market? Any final thoughts?
I think for any marketers out there who haven't worked on a go to market strategy before, don't be scared if you get thrust it on across your desk one day. It's a lot of fun, and you'll get the opportunity to try a lot of things you might not if the brand is already established. And it definitely gives you an opportunity to broaden your skill sets and try a ton of different things. And so I think if you can in your career, try and at least be a part of a go-to-market at least once, because I think it's a really good opportunity to work in that area of marketing, and it's just so much fun.
Have to agree with you. Thank you. Just to recap, so in regards to go-to-market, when you're doing your strategies, try and make sure they're authentic. Utilize SWOT where you can. It does have a fit purpose here, particularly finding some gaps and opportunities from those low-hanging fruit. Collaboration is just key. So if you bring everyone in on the journey, you're going to have a better time and probably a more fun time. And it means that helping with learnings when it comes to retros are even better. But overall, go-to-market is very satisfying when it's done right. So Michelle, thank you again so much for today. I've appreciated you coming on.
No worries at all.
Don't forget to add more to marketing to your playlist so you don't miss out on future fabulous guests. More to marketing.